spend a lot of time thinking about what's happening. What's a good way of saying what's happening? Because there's my YouTube friends, but they're not really my friends, only because I don't interact or talk back and forth with people. No one watches me, but I watch them. So there are some famous and infamous and unknown people who I consider my friends because their words fill my head with beautiful ideas. But then in the real world, I've yet to come across people who have the interest or the mindset that I do. Not that I'm looking for people to be just like me. What I really want is vast diversity. But as any of us who have spent any time searching know, that a lot of in the real world, in the world out there, in the exterior world, there's a lot of things that play at diversity which are not. And sometimes I get talking about things and tangent to tangent to tangent. Most of the time, if I really get going, or all the time, people are just like, what are you talking about? Which I understand. It's not because I'm super smart, speaking super smartly, nor is it because I'm a babbling buffoon, though I guess I'm some mixture of both. Smart buffoon, or idiotic lay intellectual. Anyway, I try every now and then to sum up, like, how do I sum up what's happening? And I've mentioned it before, but best of times, worst of times. That's seems to be what it's been for a long time. And then, as AJ always talks about, it seems as though the awake people are getting more awake and the asleep people are just getting more and more and more asleep, comatose. But anyway, to make a long story long, one of the ways I think that can be described about what's happening, and especially with the internet, and I mean, I love the internet. I love YouTube. I think YouTube is really one of the greatest things in human history, because it allows people to discuss in the way it does, and that's taken nothing away, obviously, from all the blogs and all the other information and everything on the internet, which I've had barely a taste. You spend your whole life from now till I'm 100, and you still really just get a taste. Reading nonstop, I mean, so much information. But what finally has happened, and you know, there's all the backstory, and there's all the things going on now, and there's all the agendas, and all the potential outcomes and scenarios, and you know, possibilities with which we're familiar, some which we're not familiar with, others which I at times think that I've imagined myself or come up with, just to find it the next day that it's a 100-year-old idea, 1,000-year-old idea, that someone made a video about it 2 years ago or whatever, which is awesome. Especially once you start making up these ideas. Oh, it's so wonderful, I came up with this great thing, and then you found, oh, someone thought of that 1,500 years ago. Oh, it opens the door to what's out there. Anyway, the great thing that's happening right now, among other things, among the myriad other things happening, the infinite strands of happeningness, is that we're moving from the world controlled by the extroverts to the world controlled by the introverts. This too is not a new idea, and it's not my idea. But though I've not heard it elsewhere, I'm sure it is elsewhere, the introverts are taking over. All of human history, everything has been controlled by the extroverts. Of course, there's been the introverts behind the scenes, the subversives, and we owe them a debt of gratitude. At least the ones working on the side of humanity. Even the ones perhaps who weren't. Some. But all the extroverts running everything. They don't spend time thinking about what should be. They spend time thinking about how they should be in order that they should be perceived the way that they think they ought to be. Such that perception is reality. And they're happy with that. If I'm perceived to be great, then I am great. And it doesn't matter what underhanded thing I have to do. Usually that just internal discussion isn't so deliberate or conscious, but it's happening. It happens with introverts too. It happens with all of us. Of course it happens. But now, the introverts have a place to congregate. The introverts have been locked up in a self-imposed exile, staying away from all the mouth breathers forever. All the introverts, all the thoughtful people, all the quiet people, all the shy people with wonderful ideas and no way to express them and no way to be understood, finally have the means to find each other. They could never find each other before, because when they stepped outside, it was just extrovert land, and they all went back inside to their separate places, to our separate places. It took me a quarter of a lifetime, third of a lifetime, to realize that I'm an introvert. I always had that bend, but I always had the strong extroverted bend as well. Now, thanks to other introverts out there putting information out, I've been able to recognize I'm an introvert. And it's not only is there nothing wrong with it, it's beautiful. It is so wonderful. And I don't mean closing off from everything. I don't mean shutting yourself off from life. I don't mean being passive. I mean, when I say introvert, that inner rumination, thoughtfulness, curiosity, the capacity to think, the capacity to be intuitive, the capacity to follow ideas down dark paths or from dark paths into the light. I'm so grateful. YouTube has shaped me. Not YouTube as a whole, but what has been allowed to happen because YouTube happened. Because the internet happened. There are other things as well, and people come into their own in different ways. And it wasn't just YouTube. There were things even within the mainstream that were helpful. I wouldn't be interested in what I'm interested in now had I not been interested in Alex Jones back in 2003. And I wouldn't have been interested in him had I not been interested in Tony Robbins in 2002. And so on. There's all kinds of wonderful information everywhere. And we don't have to agree with it all. We don't have to take it all in. We don't have to be all part of it. But when someone's out there putting something out, we should give them the benefit of the doubt and hear the goodness in what they're saying. And now with the likes of YouTube and the internet, the introverts more and more have a chance to share with each other, to stay in home, to stay away from the extroverts, to work on their own things, to work on their own ideas, our own ideas. The torch will be passed. It's being passed. The age, the epoch, the era, whatever, the time of the extrovert, of the rule of the extrovert, is coming to an end. And the introverts are taking over.